are going to take some notes in our math journal today. The first thing we're going to do is go to the table of contents to put our entry in here, and the entry is going to be working with place value, and it's actually going to be page 4 and 5. We're going to do 2 pages working with place value. Now that we have that in our table of contents, we're going to go to page 4 and 5. At the bottom of the page, we're going to write, or wherever you like, Miss Bridges just likes to put hers at the bottom. We're going to label it page 4 and page 5. Y'all can see I did that right there. So page 4 is going to be this page. You need to find it in what I sent home. So we're going to glue this page down on page 4. It's not going to fit this way, so you're going to have to glue it this way and then turn your notebook to write on it. So we're going to go around with our glue, big X in the middle, and glue down. Make sure that you don't cover up wherever you put your page numbers. Make sure you can still see that. Like you can still see my page 4 right there. All right, so let's talk about this page for a minute. This is using place value to multiply and divide by powers of 10, or by a 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. So our place value system is all in tens. Every time you move to the left, you're getting 10 times bigger. And every time you move to the right, you're getting 10 times smaller, or 1/10 as much. So when we're dividing or multiplying by tens, it's actually really easy because all we have to do is move the digits. It tells us right here, a little hint, if we multiply by 10, the digits move left 1 place, because when we move left, we get bigger and we're multiplying. And when we divide by 10, we move all the digits right 1 place, because we're getting smaller when we move our digits to the right. And if you notice, if you multiply or divide by 100, you're going to move them 2 times each. Some of your notes probably say multiply and divide by 1,000, and you move them 3 times each. So if you notice, however many zeros are in your groups of 10, that's how many places you move the digits in your number. So if you have 1 0, you move them 1 place, 2 zeros, 2 places, 3 zeros, 3 places, so on and so forth. You just have to remember that if you're multiplying, you want to go left with the digits, and if you're dividing, you want to go right with the digits. So we're going to do 2 examples, and we're going to look at that. So our first example that I want us to do is 6 and 42 hundredths times 100 equals. Now, I do not want you to work this out using the standard algorithm. I do not want you to work this out using the box method or the area method that y'all used last year in 4th grade. We're going to work this out using a place value chart. So we're going to take, and yes, this needs to be on your journal page. We're going to take 6 and 42 hundredths, and we're going to put it on a place value chart. So I'm just going to write it, and then I'm going to draw lines to make myself a place value chart. All right. So I'm not going to make you write ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. Those were the previous journal pages that we did where we studied place value. I'm not going to make you write all that, because you should know these are ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, and these are tenths, hundredths, and if we kept going, thousandths, 10,000ths. This decimal point is not a place value. It is a decimal. It's going to go straight down underneath where our place value is, because where our first decimal is, we're going to have another decimal. Our decimal is not going to move. What is going to move are these digits. Now I'm multiplying 6 and 42 hundredths by 100. How many zeros do you see in 100? 2. So we're going to move these digits 2 times, and I'm going to use a different color to make this easier to understand. So I'm going to take this 6, and I'm going to move it 2 times left because I'm multiplying. 1, 2. And I'm going to put a 6 there. And I'm going to take this 4 and I'm going to move it 2 times left. This decimal place is not a place value, so that does not count as one of my times that I'm moving it. I'm only moving it to the different places. And since decimal isn't a place, we're not going to count that as a place. So we're going to take this 4 that's in the that's in the tenths place. We're going to move it to the ones and then to the tens. All right, and then finally we're going to take this, make this a little bit darker. We're going to take this 2 that's in the hundredths place, and we're going to move it 2 times to the left. So we're going to move it to the tenths and then to the ones. So 6 42 times 100 is 642. So now that I have my answer, I can go right equals 642. All right, let's look at that for division. If you need a pause so you can copy all that down, you can. Let's look at a division problem. So we're going to do 3 47 divided by 1,000. We're going to use our place value chart to help us divide. So I'm going to take 3 47 and I'm going to put it on a place value chart. 3 47. Doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to use a ruler. Our decimal goes straight down where it was before. That does not move. Our digits are what's going to move. Now this time, since we're dividing, our answer is going to get smaller, so we want our digits to move to the right. How many times do we want our digits to move to the right? Well, I have 3 zeros in the number 1,000, so I want our digits to move 3 times to the right. So I'm going to take this 7 and I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3 times to the right. I'm going to take this 4 and I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3 times to the right. I'm going to take this 3. I'm not going to count this decimal as a place because it's not one. So I'm going to take this 3 and I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3 times to the right. Now, here's a common mistake that students make. Some students would tell me that the answer to this was 347. Well, let's think logically about that for a second. I have 3 ones. I'm dividing, so I'm supposed to get smaller. How could I get 347? Isn't 347 larger than 3 ones? It is. What you're missing here, you have these blank places. Hopefully your teacher talked to you last year about what you use for placeholders. If not, I'm about to talk to you about it right now. So whenever you have an empty place and you need something to hold that place, you use a 0. So I'm going to put a 0 here, and I'm going to put a 0 here. You can even put one in your ones place if you want. Not necessary, but you absolutely can do it. So 3 47 divided by 1,000 is actually 347 hundred-thousandths. So I can go ahead and put my answer equals 0, decimal 0, 0, 347 hundred-thousandths. That is very, very small. All right, we're doing one more page in our journals today. It looks like this, working with place value. You should already have your page number written on page 5. It's already in your table of contents. So you're just going to put a big square around it, X in the middle. Make sure that you don't cover up the page number wherever you wrote it. All right. So on the previous page, we looked at multiplying and dividing by powers of 10. We're going to do something very similar here, but we're going to look at 2 digits places. Let me see if I can clear this up. It looks a little blurry. That's a little bit better, I think. All right, so we are comparing the value of the 3 in these 2 numbers. You can see that the 3 is underlined in both these numbers. Whenever we compare values, we always want to write them on top of each other. We never want to look at and compare values one on top of the other, and we're going to compare decimals in a couple of weeks. And so it's always good to take the two numbers that you're comparing and rewrite them one on top of the other, lined up by place value. So 783 and 97 hundredths, 6,529 and 34 hundredths. All right, somewhere on your journal page, I just scooted over to the left a little bit and I line those up. Now, the second most important thing when you're doing this is you have to see which three they talk about first in the problem. I'm going to say that again. You have to see which three they talk about first in the problem. So first in this problem, they talk about the 3 in 783 and 97 hundredths. So I'm going to go to that 3 and I'm going to highlight it. You are comparing this 3 to the other 3 in the other number. That highlighted 3 is to the left. It is one place value to the left. And remember from our journal notes just a few minutes ago, when you move to the left, that is multiplication. Since it's 1 time to the left, that's 10 times as much. 10 times. Each time we move left, that's multiplication. And since it's only once, it's 10 times. Now, the second part of that problem says the value of the 3 in 6,529 and 34 hundredths. So this time, this 3 comes first in the problem. Because I obviously can't highlight again, because it would get confusing, both of them would be highlighted, I'm going to use my blue pen, you can use your pencil, to underline this 3. This is the one that comes first in the problem. This 3 is to the right of my highlighted 3. When we move right, that is division. So a lot of you are going to want to put divided by 10. That's okay for now, but I'm telling you, the way that you're going to see it in your iReady books or on your iReady lessons or on your test that you have coming up is not going to be with this division sign. It's going to be like this, 1/10. This sign right here, I know you've always thought is a fraction bar. Well, it is a fraction bar, but it is also a division sign. This means divided by 10. So while this means divided by 10, so does this. And this is the way you're going to see it. The value of the 3 in 6,529 and 34 hundredths is 1/10 the value of 3 in 783 and 93 hundredths. Sorry, 783 and 97 hundredths. All right, let's do one more. This time we're comparing 5s. But what's the first thing we need to do when we want to compare the values of 2 digits? We want to line them up. So scoot over to the right, 546 and 3/10, 5,896 and 3/10. See how my places are all lined up. My decimals are lined up, my tenths, my ones, my tens, my hundreds, my thousands. Now, this number here doesn't have any thousands. You can leave it blank, or you can put a placeholder. What was our placeholder from earlier? A 0. Boop. All right, this time, what comes first in the problem is the value of the 5 in 546 and 3/10. So this 5 comes first in the problem. This 5 is to the right of my other 5. This highlighted 5 is right of this other 5 down here. So that's dividing by 10, or we said we're not going to see it with the division sign that we're used to. We're going to see it as a fraction bar, 1/10. The second part of that problem has the 5 in 5,896 and 3/10. Since we can't highlight twice, we're going to use our pen to underline this 5. So my underlined 5 is the one that came first in our problem down here. The underlined 5 is to the left of that 5. So that is 10 times as much because it moved left one place. 10 times. All right, so I want you to pause the video right here, and I want you to do the next two problems on your own. And when you're done doing those two problems on your own, you can unpause the video and see what the answers were and see if you got them correct. So hopefully when you worked out your problems, you got that the value of the 2 in 2700ths was 10 times the value of the other two, and the value of the 2 in 63,859 and 7200ths was 1/10 the value of the other two. And you can see possibly, if I can show you my work down there, the highlighted 2 is to the left, that's why it was 10 times as much. And the underlined 2, which was the second part of the problem, was to the right, so that's why it was 1/10. The second two answers were the exact same, actually. This was 10 times and this was 1/10 because the highlighted 6 was to the left and the underline, which was the second part of the problem, was to the right. Now, personally, I think these problems were sort of easy. So what I want us to do is I want us to do 2 more problems that are a little bit more challenging, just on the bottom of your journal somewhere. So I'm going to scroll down here where I don't have anything. First, I want to talk about the number 426. Oops, y'all can't see that. I want to talk about the number 426. So if I told you that I wanted you to compare 426 and 4/10, I wanted you to compare those two numbers, a lot of students would have trouble lining up the decimals because they would look at the number 426 and they would tell me that it doesn't have a decimal. Well, you're partially correct. You don't see a decimal, but this is the ones place, right? Ones, tens, hundreds. Well, what is just to the right of the ones place? Isn't there a decimal? So even though you don't see a decimal at the end of this number, yes, there is a decimal there. 426 has a decimal at the end of it. It's just common practice to not put it there unless you have digits that follow. So we're going to compare the value of the 4 in 426 and the value of the 4 in 4/10. Again, we can put a placeholder. So I want to say that the value of the 4 in 426 is blank. The value of the 4 in 4/10. I don't know if y'all can see all that, so I'm going to move it over some. All right, so I look for what comes first. The 4 that comes first in my problem is 426. So I'm going to highlight the 4 in 426. That highlighted 4 is to the left of my not highlighted 4. So that is multiplication. Here's the tricky part. How many times did we move left? Well, let's see how many places we moved. 1, 2, 3. So I can't just say that that value of that 4 is 10 times the value of the other 4. Because it didn't move just one place value over like the other ones on this page did. It actually moved 3 place values over. So that's 10, 10, 10. 10 times 10 times 10. A lot of students would tell me that's 30. It is not 30. It is not 10 plus 10 plus 10. It is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So hopefully we know 10 times 10 is 100. And then times 10 more is actually 1,000. So the value of the 4 in 426 is 1,000 times the value of the 4 in 4/10. All right, one more problem. I'm going to scoot over here, have a little bit more room at the bottom of my page. This time we're going to compare 34 and 86/100ths and 6 and 32/100ths. And we're going to compare the value of the 3's. So the value of the 3 in 6 3200ths is blank, the value of the 3 in 34 8600ths. So we look for what comes first in the problem. What comes first in the problem is the value of the 3 in 6 3200ths, excuse me. So we're going to go to 6 3200ths and we're going to highlight that value of that 3 that they're talking about. That is 3/10. The other 3 is in the tens column. Tenths compared to tens. So our highlighted 3 is, let me get this back. Our highlighted 3 is 2 place values to the right. This highlight moved to the right of this not highlighted value 3. So 1, 2 times to the right. We're moving to the right this time. That's division. Is it divided by 10? No, it is not. Is it dividing by 100? No. So yes, it's dividing by 100, but we write it as a fraction, 1 over 100. So we have finished our notes for today. The assignment that you have is to complete problem set and homework of lesson 1. They give you a place value chart. They show you, just like we practiced on journal page 4, moving it left for multiplication, moving it right for division. Those 2 are examples already done for you. You have 2 to do on your own. So you share your work in the place value chart, you write your answers on the blanks, and then a question down here to answer. The back is the exact same. You have a problem already done, 2 to do on your own, and questions down there to answer. Remember to email me if you have any questions.